filler current. After crater treatment is completed, release the switch and discontinue arcing. Do not move the torch until gas post-flow is over. Practice this technique without an electrode until you've become accustomed to handling the torch. Use a wire brush to polish the area of the base metals on which you will deposit the bead, then degrease the polished part with solvent. Generate an arc and move the torch in a straight line sideways while maintaining an arc length of about 4 mm. There are 2 points to remember here. Do not change the arc length or torch holding angle midway through the process. And make fine adjustments to the torch moving speed to maintain a uniform pool width. Release the torch switch at the end of the bead to extinguish the arc, and remove the torch from the base metal only after the gas post-flow has come to a halt. Here we'll show you how to deposit a stringer bead using a filler rod. Begin by practicing hand feeding of the filler rod. Hold the filler rod lightly and use your thumb to feed its tip into the pool. Generate an arc and form a pool at the start end of the bead. Once the pool size has grown sufficiently, hold the torch and the filler rod at the angle shown here. Immerse the tip of the filler rod in the edge of the pool. Begin melting the fused tip of the filler rod as if you're letting the pool absorb the fused filler rod. Here are a few points to remember. Do not insert the filler rod tip directly under the arc, but let the filler rod tip touch the end of the pool farthest from the arc. Do not let the filler rod touch the electrode. And keep the filler rod tip within the stream of shielding gas. Once a proper amount of filler rod has been fed, immediately pull the rod out of the pool. Continue welding by repeating this process with a constant rhythm. Pay attention to the pool width at all times and try to keep it uniform by adjusting both the torch's advance and its pause, as well as the amount of filler rod being fused. Remember to extinguish the arc only after craters at the end of the plate have been filled. Once you've become accustomed to handling the filler rod, apply this technique to deposit a weaving bead. The purpose of weaving is to create a bead wider than that of a stringer bead. As a rule, however, the weaving amplitude should be kept within the pool's range and should be no larger than 5 mm to ensure a sufficient gas shield. First, make a pool at the edge of the plate in the same manner as you would for a stringer bead. Once the pool has spread sufficiently, shift the torch to the other side across the center line of the weld seam, then feed a proper amount of filler rod. After briefly suspending the torch to fuse the filler rod into one end of the bead, shift the torch quickly to the end on the opposite side and feed a proper amount of filler rod. Repeat this process with dexterity. The key point of this practice is to maintain a uniform weaving amplitude and pitch. Craters are the cause of defective welds, so fill them carefully. Since many TIG welding power source units come with a crater filler function, use it. Unless a weld seam is extremely long, It's advisable to avoid bead joining because this deteriorates bead appearance and weld quality. If discontinuing beading for resumption later is unavoidable, please follow this procedure. Begin arcing 15 to 20 millimeters from this side of the point of discontinuance and proceed with welding while fusing the previously deposited bead well and adding an amount of filler rod sufficient to add necessary bead height and width. Here we'll show you how to perform horizontal fillet welding. Degrease the practice plates and filler rod in advance using solvent. The electrode extension should be a little longer, about 6 millimeters. Once the pool has been fully formed, commence welding, holding the torch at the angle shown here. In horizontal fillet welding, it's essential that the arc length is as short as possible. This allows you to melt the base metal sufficiently and avoid incomplete joint penetration into the root. Never give priority to melting the filler metal. With horizontal fillet welding, heat will concentrate on the vertical plate side, which tends to melt first. To accommodate this characteristic, slightly shift the aim of the arc to this side of the horizontal plate rather than focusing it on the corner. Try to heat the horizontal and vertical plates at a ratio of 6:4 so that a pool forms on both plates simultaneously. As is the case with fillet welding, polish the area along the weld seam using a wire brush. Use solvent like acetone to degrease the plates fully and wipe the filler rod surface well using solvent. Set the extension from the tip of the tungsten electrode nozzle at about 5 millimeters, a little shorter than that for horizontal fillet welding. Once the pool diameter has grown to about 8 millimeters, start feeding the filler rod. Try to maintain a uniform bead